Well, hello people, and welcome back to part 17 of the build guide 2. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Welcome back to Karen, everyone. You guys really enjoyed Karen last episode, which isn't something you often hear, is it? That someone actually enjoyed the presence of a Karen, but this wonderful little town turned out great. Some lovers and some haters as well on the combination of fused industry with commercial. It's a divisive one, isn't it? But overwhelmingly, I think people seem to enjoy it. Definitely a few comments as well on how many gyms there are around Karen that everyone here must be absolutely swole. Like that guy right there. That was a kid, isn't it? Maybe not him. But maybe this guy down the street, right? There you go. He's already he's stretching, ready to enjoy the gyms around Karen. What a legend. Okay, but either way, thank you for all the support. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, just the all crazy support on this series. It's just absolutely nuts. It's so nice to read all your comments every week. And what we're doing today? Yes, let's find out, shall we? So we were working over here a couple of episodes ago, inching further and further towards downtown. And I want to do some high density stuff in this space soon, not today, but we will do some more high density, well, I guess medium density residential as we crawl up to that eventual skyline, right? But before that, I'd like to actually sort of take a detour today, heading back to the start of the city over near Orchard Bay, where there's a bit of traffic. Are we alright here? What's going on? Just a bus blocking the lane, was there? Was that all that was? Aha, no. You alright, City Skylines AI? I'm not sure if this guy knows exactly what's going on. Looks like the autopilot on Siobhan's electric car Edison Model 5 has gone a bit skits. Are you going to let people through? That's what's causing the traffic, isn't it? This can happen when the node spacing is too small. We'll just fix this temporarily and look for a better fix later on. There we go. That everyone goes through? Okay, right. Right, okay. We'll sort that out in a bit. But what we are going to talk about today is how we can use quite an important asset in the sort of ecology of a city, if you like. And this is the cargo train terminal asset from the base game, a way to import and export goods out of the city. So today we'll have a look at kind of 3 simple and easy sort of builds around these assets and factoring in a cargo train network into the city for the first time, because again, it's always important that we maintain separation between the intercity and cargo networks for wherever possible, with exceptions, so we'll talk about that today as well. Otherwise, let's harness our inner Francis and have some fun with some trains. So over on this side of the map where Fort Orchard is, we left a little bit of land free between the tile boundary, and I think this is where I'd like to start introducing the first of many cargo hubs that will be scattered across the city. So let's come onto a road guideline and we'll align ourselves with this one here. So this is currently accepting intercity connections, and this is okay. We'll leave this running for a little bit. We'll actually go parallel for a touch and then we'll start banking away. So I'd also like to use some of the one-way networks here as well today to kind of factor in a build around the rail itself, rather than just grabbing this asset, sticking it on a road and then being done with it and calling it a day. I want to see if we can give each of these little complexes some purpose. So let's grab ourselves this little one-way rail track, okay? We'll come out by 10. So I'm just going to eye up this one-way track first. About as straight as I can eyeball it with the tile boundary there. And then we're going to get this one in as well. Okay, so I know I can start sort of orientated assets around a lot of these areas now. So let's sort of factor this in here, right? We've got a little bit of measurement. Let's go and see exactly just how much we have here. Let's go for 30. And then we're going to do a little 10 curve here. That's a bit large to me. Let's go for 8 instead. Cool. And then we'll loop that around. We will have our train line sat here as well. So let's actually place in that cargo train station now. Let's go ahead and grab a little holding road for our station. So there we go. We can see that's all aligned now. Bring that in, feed it in. We're going to get some cool, almost sort of node controlled looking junctions around here as well today, just because of the way the one-way networks merge into the stations, which is nice. Again, we can factor that into our detailing, of course. Okay, so usually we'd kind of maybe call it a day now. At least a lot of people, when we place these assets, especially in vanilla, because we lack kind of industrial props, you just sort of place it and you're like, okay, it's done now. Let's sort of move on. But hopefully there's something a bit spicier we can do with these. And again, the things that we know and love, orientation, right, are always going to help bring in different vibes. So because we're near industry, why don't we have a look at some warehouses first of all? I think definitely a medium warehouse orientated up against the rail line there is going to be pretty fun. And I'm going to get these to store commercial zone goods, and I want them to be constantly on empty. So this way they're going to be constantly looking for buyers to stock those goods. And I think again we can also see where perhaps a second warehouse might want to sit in and enjoy. I reckon we could squeeze something in here if we wanted to. There we go. So we can actually back that up right onto there. And then you will actually connect through. That's wonderful. So that's going to work for us. But then actually, rather than having this as a one-way network, I'm going to use a one-way exit system here so that we don't get traffic backing up into these lanes. If they want to enter into the warehouse district to access them, then they must obey the one-way command. Okay, we've looked at one-way systems before. There's a great episode in the Varia series, if you haven't seen it, we build our cargo port when we really look at how applying sort of one-way networks is appropriate and when and where best to use them. But otherwise, I'm wonderfully happy with this. Same job again, we're going to get it to store some commercial zone goods and we're going to tie it to constantly empty. Cool, there we go. I think lots of overgrowth around here now. Of course, we can have little bits of long grass knocking about in between. Maybe through this space if we can get them in. We also use a small bit of overgrowth as well, I think, through there. Maybe something like that. Just to help fill that space in between. They can maybe even feel just like a really small live oak. There's a very small sweet spot there. That's going to be great, isn't it? Very simple, but so effective, isn't it? Cool. We got some really fun designs in store for these today as well. So I also think, how are we doing for power? And we're very nearly at the threshold, actually. And I do enjoy a geothermal. Now, it's not going to sit there for me, but that's okay. We can still orientate this within our power network. So why don't we go for that orientation right there? Do I appreciate the aesthetic of having our trains coming right by that big industrial unit? I think I do. I don't hate it for sure. And it's going to add to our general overall industrial vibe, isn't it? And there's so many different things we can combine here. I think outside of the box as well, do you maybe want a water tower over here? You know, as long as maybe you're not polluting, then you can have one over here. I am going to have a little bit of zoned industry. Again, a big shout out to Eggsy for this one. Do a little 2x2 zonings with the generic industry, and you will generate some warehouse assets through here. So I have some warehouses in there as well. It would be nice to have the power station here too, which we can do once we open the tile boundary, of course. We'll just leave that network to grow. But it's not too bad, is it, right? Little fun industrial complex now. Of course, wants to be detailed, but the general premise is here. I think I'm going to enjoy it. So let's go ahead now and get this rail hooked back in. We'll also upgrade a small little segment here as well. So you don't have to do this one-way split. You could just keep using the regular 2 rail and keep feeding it through, but I think it's nice to add a little bit more sort of personality into a rail network, because if you can really nail a solid rail network, if you haven't seen Imperator's Evergreen County, that is an example of like supreme rail network. It's absolutely incredible what Imperator did with that city. So go check that out if you haven't seen it. I'll try and remember to leave it linked down below. Cool, so we'll draw some frames here. I'm going to use a content creator bridge, I think, to cross the river, originally from this point. And hopefully we're just going to merge straight across our way without any issues. Looks like we are. So this is the American 2-lane truss bridge. You're going to get this fancy green suspension truss on it, which is always nice, right? And it looks pretty cool. Very industrial looking. It's going to sit nicely in the foreground here as another way across the water. It comes with the Bridges and Piers content creator pack, if you are wondering. And then I think here now, I'm definitely going to have some road infrastructure on this side. Exactly what this looks like yet, or where it goes, I'm not entirely sure, because we've got some interesting things to navigate here. This might need to become elevated, or some tunnels might need to happen. Something needs to go on for these to combine. But there is things over here to access, so we'll definitely bring the network down that way at some point. That is a good point, actually. Let me know what you think should sit here. We're sat opposite Freyden Square. Yes, what is it we call this, isn't it? Yes, Freyden Square. Yeah, we're sat opposite Freyden Square, so let me know what you think should sit out here. Cool, and then we'll bring everyone across. Let's get a nicer connection there on that if we can. Let's go for a curve tool there. Cool, and now we have everything hooked in. We should now start to receive cargo trains as well. We could also hook it in from this direction if we wanted to. I'll probably do that when we pop the tile boundary though, because otherwise I'm going to be playing with some pretty sharp train angles. I don't know, should we actually try that? I guess it would be fun if we could feed a cargo exit into this angle. It's just going to be too sharp, isn't it? Yeah, it's like way too sharp for a train. Yeah, I need more room for that, but it is a possible connection that we can bring in. Fantastic, cool. So this will start moving around. We'll see a train enter here now. There we go. So we're getting some of these warehouses that we want in here now as well. Also happy for a little bit of sort of one by one industry to appear here as well. But small warehouse is definitely what we want. Even some thinner numbers too. See what comes in there. A very small industry, which we would usually regard as pretty horrible. We tend to avoid these smaller shapes in industry when we're working with sort of bigger infrastructure, but for a small little space fill like this, it's absolutely fantastic. Really can't hate it. We need to actually hook this into the rest of the power grid as well. Otherwise, that's one sort of concept of station done right, a couple of warehouses, but a generic zoned industry, and a power asset, and we can make much more fuss and song and dance of our cargo train terminal. And this is also going to keep any local business around here and on the other side of the river stocked as well now, because there's just going to be that bank of goods for them to use, which is great. So I think whilst our first cargo hub ticks over, we are now going to move into a little network time lapse, because I want to essentially bring this line down through this way. We're going to do some terraforming to cross the river, delete a bunch of this industry, then cross over the highway, and then bring the cargo line into this side of the map. So we're just going to very tightly hug the tile boundary, but we'll time lapse this up, make it look cute with some terraforming and embanking. Same things that we looked at before, right? We know how much of a cute difference this makes to our networks. Yeah, we'll expand it out that way and add some more personality into the spaces around. Okay guys, so we'll have a little follow along with what's happening. We've just split our one-way system here so the loop completes and also is accessible from the opposite side as well. And then of course the loop's back in, and there you go, there's a train coming now. Perfect timing. Let's watch it drive past our industry here. There it goes. Wonderful. What a difference those little boxes make, right? Yes, please, he's going to loop around his little loop. Maybe a little bit snaky maybe, but he comes back around through to stop at the station, where he should unload. And then those people should spill out, which is great news indeed, isn't it? Fantastic. Also need to reintroduce the one-way system here as well. And they obviously won't do that stupid turnaround thing there as well. I'm happy with that, I think, for the most part. It's going to be pretty nice. Needs detail, of course. We will follow where, indeed, our train line now goes. So we have an embankment through the industrial area, which again needs to be detailed and made less obvious once we have access to the tile boundary, of course, so just bear with that. Then we come across the highway here, as we come down onto another embankment, as we come over the roundabout, which is this way. So we're by the forestry area now. And then we come on to another little raised embankment here, which is going to sit really nicely opposite this forestry area. I have ended up just deleting all the residential out here. It was all crap and just there for demand. It wasn't really a town. We will come to build another town out this way eventually. And then once we reach the end of that train line, it's going to branch off right for the third station. And then this left one is going to come down to the forestry station over here, which we'll have a little look at now. So how are we doing for power? We've got the oil power plant here. We don't really need that, I don't think, but what we do need to do before we allow the game to resume is to actually bring it into the national power grid, because currently this geothermal plant is separate from everything else. Wood factory, and I think we're going to use it in this configuration here. So I'm going to grab the cargo train terminal, and that's going to fit perfectly there, is it? Yes, please. Wonderful. Absolutely great. Let's get rid of that forest here too, so we can see what we're doing. I do want quite a lot of forest around this little industrial block though, so it's only going to be kind of a cute little small one. Okay, let's also delete a little bit of this fencing over here as well. And then this road network. And then let's see what we can do with that unique factory. So let's go for the Wood Vision furniture factory. Now it looks like, oh, we can place that, can't we? Oh, we can. We will be able to place that. I just need to place that one first, don't I? And then we'll go for like there. Hopefully that should now slide near perfectly into one another. Yes, please. And then that will give us an absolutely superb little configuration there, won't it? Getting those containers back to back with each other. Fused concrete surface, very rare in vanilla. And great for an industrial block too. And I'm happy with the way that the cargo station sits at the forestry there as well. Really adds to that industrial vibe, of course. Let's give the cargo station a one-way network flow. It's always helpful, of course. Let's go for some industrial road here. And then we'll bring this one off and down. Let's bring down the one-way system this way. Then we'll bring it up and into the front of the station. And then like that. And then hopefully another warehouse here. Maybe this time small warehouse perhaps. If we move that back we can get it flush. Or again we can do some cute little industrial overgrown detailing between there perhaps maybe. Mr. Mason's long grass always makes itself welcome in these sorts of areas. Right, a little bit of overgrowth through there as well for the overgrowth gang. Maybe not encroaching upon the concrete though, please. Let's get it in some of those spaces. Cool. Alright, and then we can do this as empty again as well, to store commercial zone goods. We could get this to store something that the factory wants actually. Plain timber or paper, but it's right in the forestry area, so it's not like it's going to struggle for supply. And then you can actually loop up around on the side of the forestry area and hook back into the forestry area. That's going to be great. And then, of course, the old faithful orientation is here to stay. It's always the best, isn't it? The Wood Vision factory against the highway. Even though you can't see the Wood Vision logo, we have to change that. Let's remove all the tall boys from that forest palette. I really just want that sort of shrubbery undergrowth to be visible. Okay. And then we can have the Wood Vision sign visible again from the highway there, which is superb, isn't it? It's just my favourite orientation. I think anything beats that, right? You can't really see the Wood Vision through the trees, so to speak. If you know what I mean. Cool. Happy with that. So we've got a little space here in the middle now. Let's have a little mooch through garbage processing. We're nearly at the point we need another one, and we did just delete a recycling centre from here. So why don't we see if we can do a little recycling centre pattern, like so. And then something in like that. And then we can do maybe a little bit of poor man's gravel painter. And then we can just have a little industrial battery with this road no longer being needed. And this one also needing to be one way. To help save this little point here. And can we get in another warehouse there, I wonder? I hope we can. Yes, we can indeed. Okay, so that makes me want to store plain timber here then. What's the forestry producing the least amount of? Plain timber. Okay, so it makes sense to store more of that. So we'll have that stored there then, and we'll keep it on balanced, I guess, whilst it's supplying the factory. And then all we want to do now is bring this little road up here, this rail line, which probably does need to be sloped before this comes back down. It's a little steep. We'll refine that in our detailing time lapse. At least for right now it's connected. Cool. And then I think we'll just polish this off with A touch of Old Faithful. Let's go ahead and pull out some oil fence, right? And then we're going to bring this in the grid, in and around wherever we want it. We go for there, connect into that fence, and then bring that forest back around again that we want here. Cool. We could also add another little industrial sort of service slip ramp back onto the highway here if we wanted. That would be great for alleviating pressure, which we might need to do because this road might be about to get quite a bit busier with the trains that are going to be unloading here. But we'll see what happens. Yes, and then I'd like that fence to, I guess we've already got one here this side, haven't we? Maybe just run down the road for a little bit as well, perhaps down back towards where the town is. And probably bring that forest on this side too, once we've softened out that bit of land. And now we should just have this really cute personalized industrial block that's making use of some really useful assets for us, right? 3 garbage processing here, a couple of goods storage, a cargo train terminal close by to where 2 industrial sites are operating from, which is going to be really handy for exporting. And then of course, nice orientation of a factory as well. This is, I think this right here, everyone, the medium warehouse with, or the small warehouse with the wood vision factory cargo center is like top tier vanilla orientation. This might be one of my favorite ever ones we've done. What a great little combination of assets for vanilla, right? Wonderful stuff. Things we love to see. Anyway, we'll hang around and wait for a train to appear. So there it is. That's a great drive-by, isn't it? I absolutely love that. Cool, so these guys are going to come down and into the station. Unload, of course, and this looks great. Love the addition of trains into a forestry area. We've never done that before. Very appropriate aesthetics to me. Huge lover of that. Especially with the wood vision sign facing into the forestry area too. Most welcome addition, I think. Most welcome. The highway here, now the sign's lit up. Oh, look at that. That's so good. That is so good. A little sight line there too as well, perhaps. Yes, please. There we go. But either way, that is this second cargo area set up. So let's now turn our attention towards the third one. So I'm thinking we're going to have this one over here where we've got this little road, and I want to see if we can do some embanking here to help support the idea. So I think we'll possibly keep the rail line embanked for its journey through this suburb. Because I mentioned before, eventually we're going to have a town out here. So I guess if we're going to have a busy rail line, we might as well also make it embanked because it's going to make it much easier to work with. So we'll keep that embankment going. It's going to look pretty unnatural for the time being until we tidy it all up. But it's going to give us, again, always with terraforming, give yourself a bit more room than you need. Always makes it a lot easier. Okay, so this brings us this train line over here for us. So let's now grab some industrial road and not upgrade the main road into it. Don't do that. Let's try that again. Then what you're playing with here, that's 4-lane with cycle roads, isn't it? Wonderful. Okay, so now let's grab our industrial road again and then bring it up onto this embankment. So we'll place the cargo station first. And again, I know this isn't going to be the end of the line, so I want to prepare for its eventual succession. I'd like to see if we can bring this over on a bridge again over the highway, which we can't do at the minute because we're right in the corner of our current tile boundaries here, but once this opens up with 25 tiles, we will be able to feed cargo train networks through this side of the city into probably what will be more rural towns out this way. So that'll be fun, right? A nice sort of long distance rural train project, I guess. So let's do some more terraforming here, push things out. So I did mention today that I want a fire helicopter depot in here as well, which I think is going to be a good shout to integrate into this area over here. So let's bring in some holding frames for that idea to take place and just have a look at our fire helicopter asset. So I think in that case it would actually be cool to have it going up this way instead and then losing these areas entirely. And then switching our fire helicopter depot around to face this way. And then that's going to kind of look out onto the road then as well. I think that's pretty cool. Also the noise pollution here shouldn't be too bad for people in the town. Yeah, that's fine. They're not going to suffer from noise pollution there. And then I think also as well, let's add another little industrial vibe into this one. Why don't we go for some post-sorting facilities? Let's sync the power through with an earthquake sensor. That should hopefully jump everyone across. There we go. So I did also move some sewage treatment when we were working on that rail time lapse. So I'm thinking now I might just compensate that with a bit more eco inland water treatment here. Can we go for 2 of these? And then I think we'll just future-proof ourselves in terms of sewage, I guess. Which is not something I thought I'd say when I was making YouTube videos. I didn't think we'd have to future-proof ourselves against sewage, but here we are, everyone. Yeah. Okay, I think even what we could do with this one is add in a little toll booth as well if we wanted to. Why don't we see what we think of that? Let's go ahead and slope this out a little bit. So we'll go from there to here, and let's just slope up to there. Tremendous. So we'll do a tiny little bit of industrial road. And then let's see if we can squeeze in a little 2-way toll booth. Yes, we can. Could even just do it a little bit sooner than that, maybe. Something like that. Let's grab that toll booth. Again, it's not going to be making a vast amount of money, but kind of acts as a little security thing, doesn't it? It sort of beefs up the industrial vibe. Cool. And then we can just get a nice big sweeping curve out of here. And then just line it up with this one to appropriately curve in. And then there's lots of industrial fence detailing to be done around this area here. Come the time lapse, of course. Maybe even, I think, a touch more holding frame here next to our sewage treatment, maybe. Warrants perhaps a bit of generic industry. Some smaller shapes and maybe a bit of office space. We'll see what grows in and what we're fond of. This would also be a great opportunity as well to do the flooding key trick here, to have a key in against this side. I think that'll look really good. We might even try that actually. Might try flood this and put a key alongside it with that embankment. Or actually what I might do is clear the forest off of it and do a rock wall here. I think a rock wall might be a little bit more industrial with then that fence edging around it. But you know, just again, a little difference, right? We don't just have to place these things on a road. We can pair them with other things like post-sorting facilities and sewage treatment, generic industry and office zoning, service assets in unique factories as well, and like so many different combinations and styles to really just give them much more personality rather than just leaving these huge cargo assets on a road. We can really try and blend them in with like so many different combinations and styles. They're really fun assets to work with, and you'll notice a big difference in your industry as well when you have these appropriately spaced around the city. Especially over here now when we're serving 2 5-star industrial areas with these things. This should take a lot of pressure off of the export people. And we can probably notice it on these roads, you know. If we come back to how busy these roads were when we did this thing, there's probably a lot less coming through now. Which is good, right? Always less traffic is a good thing. For those interested in the traffic, I'll show you, because I know we do get comments about it. What are we on now? 87% traffic flow at the minute, everyone. Oh, there you go, 89 now. You gotta go to 90. Can we get a 90% vanilla traffic flow? No, just 89. That's all we're allowed. Cool, but either way, I'm happy with these now. I think I want to go ahead and detail them up alongside the rail network that's coming through this part of the city as well. Lots of overgrowth and fencing, and tidying up of the networks and terraforming to make this fit in. Fencing and industrial detailing around everywhere else. I'm pretty happy with that asset there. That can stay. And no, we'll wait for that one to grow up a little bit. But otherwise, we'll generally detail all 3 sites and get them tied into their new surroundings, and then we'll be right back. Alright guys, let's have a little detailing review, shall we? So I decided to implement a roundabout here because I wanted to expand the networks away from this little cargo hub. And I'm not entirely sure what I want to put here. This will either be used for some residential, or maybe we can do like another sort of modular industry bit out here. It's kind of too small for a main build, but I don't know. Let me know again what you guys think should sit on this side of the river. We're opposite the kind of cute outer lying suburban waterfront here, so let me know what you think would sit nicely across from this viewpoint right here. But either way, lots of forest and overgrowth in and around the rail lines have also included some very temporary, pretty sharp turnaround points. Once we do unlock this tile boundary, I will definitely make more room for these curves to come into the system. But for right now, it does actually supply the railway with cargo trains in both directions, so it's working nicely. And let's just take a look inside this little cute, compact vanilla rail yard. Just super nice, right? Really cool. All these loading bays here as well, which definitely make it look like they belong to the rail yard itself. Some very appropriate generic industry spawned in against our rail line here. And it's nice to see some sort of like vanilla rail yard, you know. A rail yard is almost impossible to achieve without assets and probably a better rail pack off the workshop. But this is really cool. So we'll see how a train comes in. They come into here. They will either stop or not stop. Like that one doesn't stop there. Then it's going to enter the system. It's going to turn around and then back out as well over there. So really happy with this one. Lots of generic industry overgrowth around it. Love the little compact dense rail yard that's in here that the one-way track really makes up for. It's a really nice network, that one. Then we cross over our rail here. Into a very obvious tile boundary. The right side, of course, will open up, but lots of fencing and overgrowth patterns against the embanked rail, and I love the view that these guys have as they drive through this industrial area. Again, just a super nice, sort of appropriate generic industry area. Super happy with it. Fencing and power plants and service assets. It all really comes together, of course. And then we cross over this side, where we have more overgrowth here as well. Also popped in a bit of commercial along this side of the road as well, where we do have our fencing and overgrowth as the train crosses the roundabout. Into this area over here, we do have a bit more commercial, which I think I'm happy with that one. We'll make that one historic. And then the train line comes back onto its embankment. And also decided to sink a pedestrian pathway underneath, which you can see there are people using actually to get back into between here to the bus stop, which is exactly what I wanted to use it for. So super happy with that, and then lots more overgrowth and fencing around that again as well, which looks really cool. Then we cross over into our split system, where this one comes down with more tasteful commercial and fence jobs all around this space, and this is just my favourite. It's just so cool. Absolutely love the configuration of this yard with factory warehouses, garbage processing and cargo train stations. Super cool. There you go, you can see a lot of that forestry product now getting loaded out onto the cargo train as it leaves the facility. Super cool. And very busy as well, so nice to see so much export being used by these two industrial areas over here. And great orientation of the Wood Vision sign from this point as well. Then as we arrive our third little facility, toll booth is in now, also brought in that rock wall around the whole plaza. Also happy with that asset in there again now, and some more office zoning dropped in around. Ended up keeping that Banhammer Bank building. I thought that's sort of worked really nicely, especially from down here on the highway. And again, just a point to hammer home how much of a difference a little embankment on a build makes. Just gives it that extra layer, especially in a landscape like this where we are very flat out this side of Bay of Rivers. So that little spike in height there, from whichever way you look at it, is going to settle in super nicely, isn't it? Very happy. Very happy with it. And then there's a little bit of more overgrowth work around here as well. Also a bit of ore industry fencing, just so there's not oil fencing everywhere. Again, a bit of generic industry, some poor man's surface painter, and nice orientation and tree linings of our cargo trains. Interestingly enough, when the cargo trains are coming around here, we'll hopefully have another one before we finish recording. But yeah, they were dropping off a lot of posts, so the AI is definitely recognizing the fact that the post via train needs to be dropped here for the sorting facility. We'll try and wait for a train to arrive here to sort of showcase this. So we'll see if the game is about to make me look stupid. Yes, there. Okay, so just one post truck that time. But there's been occasions where there's been maybe sort of 3 or 4 post trucks, so the sort of delivery cargo AI certainly recognizing that post would be more efficient to be dropped here. And you see a lot of it just exporting now and then coming back out again. straight back into the facility. So interesting to kind of take note of that. And I also dropped in some car parks at the front of the first facility as well, just as a bit of staff parking, which I thought might have been appropriate. But otherwise, guys, that is going to do it for today. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, if you have, likes, comments and shares below really do help me out. Even if you haven't enjoyed it, then please feel free to leave me a dislike as well. I'm enormously happy with the way that this has turned out. These cargo hubs can be fairly difficult assets to use because there's nothing else in the game that's quite like them. And I think a lot of us do struggle with train infrastructure still to this point, especially within 9 tiles where it can be difficult to properly plan it, of course, because by the time you get to trains, you've usually built out a lot of stuff. But we've got 3 little cargo hubs now that are going to continually serve this side of the city, with import and export process, of course, alongside all that generic commercial goods storage too, which will keep everyone nice and stocked up with goods and everyone happy, of course. Please do enjoy your cinematics, but I will shut up and leave it there. Let's thank you all so much for support again on this series. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.